Okay. So everybody should be able to see my cats. You can unmute and say, "Yeah, I see your cats."
I love the flying cats.
Ice cats.
Fingers cat.
Cats in space.
Yeah.
Kitties.
Obviously we can see them. So same basic process, Mac or PC. Right now I'm on a PC. I personally start everything from scratch. This isn't really anything that's too new for anybody else who's visited me in these videos before. So I believe I've already got a web 49 folder. Yeah, I've got a unit 2. So we're gonna all right, cool. So we're gonna do a new folder called Sprint, and we're gonna say Sprint 2. Yeah, I have to organize this stuff like crazy. If anybody has a question, don't be afraid to go off mute and just ask. It's not like we have like 500 people in here and they're just going to talk over each other. That's one of the main things is I don't really pay that much attention to the chat or anything else. So fastest way to get a hold of me is just to, unmute and say, "Hey, Brian, what on earth are you doing?" You'll also hear me drinking my sparkling water at the same time, so it's always fun. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new project using npx create React app. And we're going to call this Rick in all lowercase. And wait for it, because it's having to download this, and I live in the middle of nowhere with horrible internet. So let's see, that's going to take a couple of minutes, I promise. So it looks like the main thing people want help with is going to be mapping over arrays, followed by useEffect, useState, followed by components, followed by other random stuff, and followed by styled components. So, so basically everything. So everybody seems to have a handle on axios, but not mapping over arrays or useEffect, useState. So I guess we'll start talking about mapping over arrays first, and start moving this into something that that looks like a real application. But so since we're dealing with mapping over arrays, I'm going to leave out useEffect, useState until we actually start dealing with the Rick and Morty array. But for right now, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to make our own array with our own objects inside of the arrays. So this is already, I'm typing into the Slack channel. That's not what I wanted.
Hey, Brian, just a question real quick.
Go ahead.
Are we going to be able to access this recording? I've got my son that's sick at home right now, so I'm going to be popping in and out. I just want to know if there's a way that I can access this afterwards.
Yeah, I'll post it up to the channel once when it's done processing.
Okay.
I have a fairly fast computer, but I also post it to YouTube, so YouTube takes longer than my computer to process this stuff.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man.
You're very welcome. So I just CD'd into Rick and Morty, since when you do a create React app, it tells you to CD into it. So let's see.
Actually, I have
We're
one
used
odd
to.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm on the I'm looking at my modules, and I went to go do the test, and it's saying that everything is already done and submitted.
Okay.
I don't. Oh, never mind. Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. I'm in the wrong one.
That might
Wrong
do it.
tab. Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely didn't do this and submit it on the 28th of October. All right, thank you.
Not a problem. All right. So after I did the create React app, you'll notice that I did CD Rick and Morty. And then it says to do npm start. Instead, I did code period so that it would open up the Rick and Morty repository. So if I do npm start, it should start up the React service. And of course, it opens on a new tab. I'll probably have to shrink this down a little bit. Got some new driver revision on my video card, and it's been glitching out on my gigantic display. It's okay, it'll live. So what I'll do is I'm going to kind of clean up all the stuff that I'm not really wanting to go into on this React app. So we're going to kind of start eviscerating the whole thing and kind of connecting in the stuff that you learned last week, like query selector. We're going to use a query selector on this, just one, and render to the query selector. So has anybody not seen the public directory to see what's in here? Like the favorite icon, there's an index HTML file, bunch of logo stuff, manifests, robots, that kind of stuff. Anybody? Oh, come on. Nobody wants to come off of mute. It's horrible.
I've looked through it a little bit, yes.
Okay.
I think
So-
we just looked at it today, and was it today in class too? I think when he went through his full install.
Sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of start deleting stuff until it starts breaking. And then we're going to go through and fix it. That one. Get rid of this logo. You don't have to do this. This is just me being me. Yeah, so we got this huge HTML file. I don't think I need any of this. I'm just going to start this one over. So I'm going to do exclamation point tab. And then we need some sort of a container, like, I don't know. So we did a section class container in here. So this will give us kind of a good place to kind of put our application, right? So the application's gonna go right here. So if I save this, it should nuke it pretty hard. I mean, it's target container is not a DOM element. Oh no, we broke it really bad. And you can kind of see, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So you can see it's a C users, alpha projects, blah, 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 sprint 2, Rick and Morty, source, index.js, line 7. And it's saying render, strict mode, blah, blah, blah. This is broken. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into that file. So source index.js. And you're going to notice that this is doing a get element by ID. Let me stretch this out a little bit. We're going to move this to another pane. No, not that one. Give me that one there. Does this look like an ID to you guys, or is that a class? It's not a trick question, I swear.
That's a class.
Okay.
Class.
So get element by ID isn't going to work because it's not an ID. But we could always use a query selector. Right? And instead of root, it's container, but I can't just type container here because we have to tell it what it is. So if it was an ID, we use a hashtag or #. Classes to use periods. If it was just called container, you know, where we just like named it container for whatever reason, we could do that. But since this is a container class, we just do query selector dot container. So if I save this again, well, let me get, and I refresh, it's back up and running because now it is inserting this app into our index.html. I guess I already had it open right here. So as I said, this is where app goes. And if we inspect here, you'll notice that we have that section class container and we have that div class app that's coming from our app. So if I switch over to app.js, and I guess move this one over here. Actually, no, I want this one over here. Then you can see that app is called over here. And so whatever app is returning gets rendered to document query selector container. So this is our first component. And I'm just going to be mean and start deleting things until it breaks again. I don't think I need any of that. No, don't need that. Don't need that. I think that's pretty much the basic thing that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Hasn't broken, but now our fonts are a little funky. So we got rid of the CSS file. Don't need report web vitals. Ooh, tests, that's next week. More tests, that's next week. I don't need any logo. This is going to break it. And I don't really. So I'm just down to index.js and app.js and the other stuff that kind of comes with it, right? So we're down to effectively 3 files that we care about. So index.html, index.js, and app.js. So we're now broken. You can see logo SVG doesn't exist. So we can get rid of both of those up here. Let me save it. It's probably still broken because we still have to do other things with it. And I'll refresh.
So Brian, can you tell me again? I didn't think we had to do anything with the index.js.
No, you
Can
don't.
you tell me again why you did the document query
Query selector?
Yeah.
So like if you go into this index.html file in public, so used to this right here was something that was more like div root, like that. So it's a div with an ID of root. I went ahead and changed it because why not? I'm trying to give an example of where this stuff is mounting and why, you know, why it's turning into an HTML document. Because a lot of people kind of have that idea that React is some magical creature that, you know, you can't kill it. And I'm just trying to show that it's, you know, kind of not immortal.
Okay,
It's
so
very mortal.
for what we're doing, we can leave it as.
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to do any of this.
I
This is
get
just trying to show you where the app is being attached to or mounted. So in this
Okay.
case, this is where app goes. I guess we could probably turn it into oops, I just clicked the wrong button. Jeez, I'm losing my mind. App.js. So this is where app.js goes. But it's using this index.js here, this query selector, and it's mounting app into this query selector. So it's kind of like saying the append child. So document.querySelector container, then append child app, kind of like last week. This is sort of what React DOM render does. So, but if I go back over to app, I kind of got rid of, you know, some stuff in here, and it's still broken. So it's complaining about logo and CSS and whatever, but I really don't want any of that. So I'm just gonna save it and see what's exploding still. Absolutely nothing is exploding, but we don't really have anything in here other than div class name app, right? Nope, I just minimized that. Nope, wrong one. Where is it? I have so many things open, it's not even funny. There. So you can see we've got this this little icon and a document up here. If I go back over to the index HTML file, you can see it says document. We're going to change this to Rick. So if I save that, now that I've changed the title in this HTML, it's going to say Rick and Morty up on the tab. So if I wanted to do Rick and Morty API, you'll find that they have like some nice little images. And we'll just do Morty. So we're gonna save that image. Yeah, 232 sounds good. And I'm gonna find a favicon.io, and I believe that this is a show folder. I'm just going to drag this over and see if it works. All right. And so this is giving me a zip file with this favicon thing in here. I could just copy this, and I'm going to go to, I think I can just paste it directly in here into public. It won't let me, but we can reveal and then paste in public. All right. So now we just basically put the favicon file into the index.html. And if I go back over to our Rick and Morty, you can see now we have that Morty picture up here as well. So that's your favicon, and this is your title, which is Rick and Morty. So we're getting to the point where it's you know, kind of easy stuff, easy kills to make things look a little bit better, more than anything else. Doesn't really teach you very much about React. This is more just HTML basics. But just showing that you could still do things in HTML in here. So like if you wanted a different font or something, you could put it in here. Or if you wanted access to a photo, you could put it into like, you know, public and make a new folder called it images, and then just have all your images in that. And then you could just access it by accessing images, then whatever the file name is, just like you would with, you know, last unit. So the public directory is kind of the more interesting one that a lot of people don't focus on. They just think it's this black box and nobody knows how it works. But the idea is to kind of show you guys that it's not anything to be afraid of or anything else. Did I scare anybody off yet?
Nope.
Take a little drink from my sparkling water jug, and let's see. So I think I'm pretty well done with this index.html, so I'm going to close it. I really also don't need to have a favorite icon open, so I'm going to close that. And we've already got like an app.js over here and an index.js. So I think we're also done with the index.js. No reason to keep it. And so now we just have app. So because our number one item that we were running into is mapping over arrays, I'm gonna kind of show you guys in the same app a very simple way of mapping over an array, and then we're going to get a little bit more complicated with it, if that's okay with you guys. It'll probably take about 20-30 minutes to go over arrays. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So we're going to start by just making that's my array. I'm not getting into useState yet because, well, that is something that we'll just get into a little bit later. So if you'll notice, we have this these brackets here. That's what tells you it's an array. If it was a curly bracket, then it would be an object. But all an array is just a comma separated list of stuff. So if I do Brian, is it two N's? I've seen it spelled both ways. I know I have. And then we'll do Josh. Oh, kind of do a capital J. And we'll just put one more in. We'll do Joey. Nope.
So my brother's name is Brian. You could add Todd too.
Okay, I'll put in Todd. Two D's. I've seen it spelled both ways.
Two D's.
So, okay, so now we got Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey. So what you'll sometimes see is you'll see them like put these on individual lines afterwards. This is just a styling thing. It's not going to break anything to do it that way, but you can kind of see that, you know, it's kind of like when you have like a function where you start that opening bracket here and you close the bracket at the end. That's pretty common to see things styled like this. Some companies want it all on one line. Some companies want it on individual lines. I'm just kind of trying to show you that, you know, all this is just a list, an unordered list, or sorry, an ordered list of stuff. So, you know, Brian is first, the 0th array. Roxanne is at the first array, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. So one of the things that you'll notice here is that we have this return statement here has parentheses. So on a return statement, if you see parentheses, you need to remember that you are in JSX mode. And I call it a JSX mode. There's probably a better word for it, but it's the only one that seems to make sense to everybody. So I just call it JSX mode. If I want to go back into JavaScript mode, I do these curly brackets. And this will allow me to start running JavaScript code instead of it printing out JavaScript code. So if I did my array.map, so what this is doing is every array has a method called map. But if this was like an object or something, or a string, or, well, I guess a string, you can map over a string. But if it was like a number or null or undefined or whatever, then you can't map over it. So myArray.map will work. Second thing that it needs is a callback. And I use arrow functions like this. And what map is going to do is it's going to use that callback on one item inside the list. So in this case, it's a person. So we try to use nice names for things. So that's a person. And technically, it shouldn't even be called my array. It should be called people, because that is plural of person. Right. So now we have people.map, which is an array, so we should be able to map it. And when we're dealing with person, it's going to run this function for every single person in that list. So if I did console log person here, because you can see we're in curly brackets here, we can run JavaScript code. I save this. I go over here to console. You can see that app.js was run once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and outputted Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. So that's all that we're doing whenever you're dealing with a map, is you are outputting whatever item is in between this bracket and this comma, this comma and this comma, this comma and this comma, etc., all the way down till it gets to the end. So what if we wanted to make this a little different? So we turn this into an object. So we're going to need a key value pair. So name is Roxanne. We're going to save that. So I'm going to refresh this so it's just one at a time. So you can see this is a string, but this is an object. So if I wanted to turn everybody into an object, it would probably make it so it's more consistent. So let's go ahead and do that. Take a minute. This is a pattern that you'll see in almost every API, is that you will have an array of objects instead of an array of strings or an array of numbers or whatnot. It's always going to be an array of objects. You might have an object that comes back that has an array inside of it as well. That's very common. Or you'll have array with object, and then one of the keys is another object, and then another key is an array, and it can go on and on and on. So you're not just limited to that one instance of you can only go one deep. You can go and have the Library of Congress with every single word and what book, you know, the word the happens in, and sorted by, you know, if the only occurs 3 times in the book, tell me which books only have the 3 times. Probably be 0, but still. So you can have this as detailed as you want it. Probably not worth it to go to that, but you could. It would just be insane. So now if I save this and I refresh the page so we stop having multiple things, you can see now that we are console logging just the name. So we're still not displaying anything over here, so that's a little boring. What if we wanted to turn this instead of into console log person? What if we wanted to make this so that it was, say, just say an H1, right? So what I needed to do here is I needed to change this to a parentheses instead of a curly bracket. If I had a curly bracket, I'd still have to return and then have like this H1, right? So it's just kind of a little easier. This thing's buzzing over here.
So we don't, so I put a return, but I have curly braces, but we don't need that. We can just do the
Yeah, you can do the
parens without a return.
Yeah, if you're using a parentheses. Yeah. And then in here, we can break out of this JSX mode, because anytime you see that parentheses on a return, it's going to be a JSX. So we can break out of that JSX by putting a curly brace in there. we do person.name. So on person, the first person is this object. Dot name is this first key here. So we've got person.name. And I'm just going to save this. And now what this has done, if I go back over to elements, where's the little grabber thing? Come on. I don't remember which one is which. There we go. And I go inside of the app, you can see that we've got H1 Brian, H1 Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. So I've got that many H1s, and there's an argument on how many H1s you can have, or if you're allowed to use H2s. And so long as it's somewhat semantic, you're probably okay. But typically, if you were to look inside of like a book or something, H1 would be the title of the book. H2 would be like a chapter name. And then H3 would be like a section inside of a chapter. And then paragraph would be an individual paragraph or something like that. And they have ones that you'll go down to like H4 and things like that. But at that point, we're just getting into semantic HTML, and I can always drop a nice video that explains it in the chat later, or in Slack a little bit later. So this right here actually gives us enough information that we could actually connect into this Rick and Morty API. But what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to make this a different component. So just to be organized, we're going to call this a components directory. It doesn't have to be components. You can call it whatever you want. It could be called banana as far as you know, but I wouldn't go looking for banana or components inside of a banana directory. So I'm going to call this one people. And you'll see me use JSX instead of JS only because the linter likes it better on my machine. But JSX file is a JS file. Just it allows me to type H1 tab and get an H1, kind of like with an HTML file. So the linter works better in people.jsx. So this is sort of moving into, let me find it, the components, which I believe 5 of you have talked about, or voted on, I should say. So we're kind of moving from mapping over arrays and making a component instead. So this is where we get into props as well. So components deal with props. And if anybody's really can describe what a prop is, all a prop is just an object. That's it. So it's an object. It's got key value pairs in it. And I'm not going to destructure. I know we push destructuring, but to a lot of people, when I do it this way, it makes more sense. If you want to destructure, continue doing it the way you were taught. But traditionally, the first thing you need is an import. So you need your import. Yeah, I swear, that does that every single time. The autofill on my thing has gone insane. I have no idea why it's trying to do core.js. So we've got import React from React. And then we're going to need to make a new variable called people, capital P. And we're going to set this to a new function. Right? So the variable name is people. And instead of it being a type of a object or an array or a string or a number or a bool like true or false or whatever, I have it set to an arrow function. We're also going to be passing in props. So I might do console log props, make sure that we're getting what we're expecting to get. And then I need a return statement. And I'm just going to put in a blank return statement. This will return nothing. And we need an export. So the export default people here is saying we want this to be the default export. So like for an example, React is the export default from React. Make sense? Or did I lose everybody?
All good.
Makes sense.
Excellent. So now we kind of have this people here. We haven't imported it or anything else, so we'll go and import it. So we're going to import it from the current directory, which is source. We're going to go up a directory into components and then select the people.js or JSX, and it's happy. And it's grayed out here because I haven't put it anywhere yet. So if I just want to put it right here, and sorry, then I save that. We go back over to the Rick and Morty thing here and go back to console. If you notice here, it says people.jsx line 4, which is our console log. It's just an object. There's nothing in it though. It's completely empty. But so now let's what happens if I do name equals like that. I save that. We're going to refresh it because I can. If you notice now, we just have a key value pair where the key is name, the value is Brian. So that's props.name in this case. So when you see like people destructuring, like in the Insta clone, you would see something like name, but this would be in these little brackets. What this is doing is saying, hey, I want to make a new variable named name, and it's from props. So this is saying effectively the exact same thing as if I did const name equals props dot. The exact same thing as that. Now we can also get a little bit more interesting. We can drop this people in here. And so typically what you're going to do is you're going to see people equals curly brackets people. So we try to keep this naming where it's similar, if not exact. So it's a lot easier to track what you called it originally by doing it this way. So this is creating a new key named people. So this is now props.people, and this is equal to this whole chunk of code here. So if I save this, well, let me go. I'm going to save this and then save this, and then I'm going to refresh. So when we look into this, you're going to open up this. We still have name, Brian, and now we have that people array. So that's props.people. If we go back over to this people over here, I could even do like that. And now we have a new variable named people. And what this would look like here is like that. So it would be const name comma people if you wanted to destructure it. The thing is that it has to match perfectly this word here and this word here with this name here and this name here, because this is your key. Destructuring make any more sense to anybody? Feedback, come on, feedback. Or did I lose everybody?
It makes sense to me.
Okay. Does it make more sense though?
What I'm wondering about is when you pulled in people, because isn't people the whole array? So
Yeah.
why would you do that?
Why would I do the
Well, if
entire
you bring-
array?
Well, why would you do that when you pulled in the name also? Isn't that kind of a?
No, I didn't
duplicate?
really pull in a name. I made a name up. I don't know who this Brian guy is, but you know. See, I just put in a name just to show you that it can be anything that you want. You're the one who makes props. Props are you.
Oh, so what you brought in with name was just the one name, Brian, not
Yep.
the whole, not everybody's name.
Nope, it was
Got it.
just a string value of Brian. It's not smart enough to
Okay.
know what I'm pointing to.
Okay.
So, but this is saying, I'm going to take this entire array and stick it on props.people. So if I go back over here, I'm going to comment this out so that I don't start getting weird undefined things. So let me move this over here. So now this people equals people is this line right here. So we've got props.people, and we're making a new variable that's only in the scope of this function. So this people doesn't belong anywhere else other than this function people with capital P. So what I can do is I can cut this and go over here, paste it. Paste it exactly right, but that's okay. That one's set to 4 spaces for whatever reason. The other one's set to 2. No idea why. All right, so let's do. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that. There. Now it looks a little bit better. So now what we have is we have this return statement here. It's returning JSX because it's in parentheses. We're doing this because it needs a node to attach to, and these are what we call fragments. So they're kind of like a div, but they don't render. So if you wanted to, you could, put a div there and a slash div here, and it would do the exact same thing, except it would render the div. So, or you could even turn it into an article if you want. Probably should multi-cursor that. Like that. So what this is doing is when this runs, we're returning div class name is app. So it'll be div class app. Then it's going through here. It's making people.map. So it's going to props.people. It's making a new variable called people. It's then mapping over that. And it's doing the exact same thing where it gives you your H1s. So you got Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. And if we go into body, you can see we've got that section class container from the HTML file. And then we've got div class app. And then we've got an article. And we've got all these H1s inside of here, because it's looping through that array. But if you'll notice, that array isn't in scope of people. So we have to pass it in through the parameter props. So we're passing this whole chunk of code 5 through 24 on line 28 inside of props right here. So anytime you hear props, you're talking between the E here and that slash. That's all props. And it's probably throwing some fit over each child in a list should have a unique key prop, right? So let's go ahead and put that in there. So this is where you would have like an ID 0, comma, 1, comma. Yeah, I swear I'm going to get this right one of these days. ID 2, comma, ID 3, comma. All right. So now when we have these objects, you have a key value pair and a key value pair. So we can access this by, over here, person.id. And so if we wanted to make this where it has a key on it, we could go person.id. And that'll shut up this each child in a list, blah, blah, blah stuff, right? But it has to be on the parent return. So if there's any children of this H1 or div or whatever, you can't just put a key on the child. It has to be on that parent, that first returned element.
So what's the advantage of doing that over putting it in the people render on apps.js?
Well, we don't really have a people render because this isn't being looped. This is, and this isn't working exactly the way I wanted, of course, but I'm not entirely sure why, but my brain's not all there, I
Okay.
guess.
Because I put it
But-
inside the people component.
Yeah, but
thing.
like if I had a key equals, people, you could technically do that, but it's still not going to fix anything. Oh, actually, that did. Maybe we already fixed that. Let me get rid of that because that was a weird bug that I don't think I've ever seen before. Save that and let me see if that still throws that same. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, my brain was just hallucinating or something. So the reason why we put a key on a map is because it can't tell the difference between this H1 and the next H1 and the next H1 and the next H1. So it needs something that's sort of kind of unique. And so what you might see is a lot of people doing, person article ID plus person ID, like that. And all this is going to do is just make it shut up, and then it'll be a really, really, really unique thing. So if some other H1 has a key of 1 because you're generating more than one H1 for whatever reason, then in some other loop somewhere else, then it's not going to interfere with that other H1 whenever there's a change. And it's just the way that React uses things to detect when there's a change or where it needs to re-render. And you'll run into all kinds of weird things when you don't use unique names. But typically you don't really have to worry about it until, I don't know, probably labs. So after core curriculum, but you might want to get in the habit of doing something like this, some unique thing here that would only deal with, you know, people, article, you know, person ID. We already know it's an H1. So this actually goes in directly into something else. If we wanted to make another component called person, that way we've got this H1 in there. That's the next step to doing what I'm going to be doing with this Rick and Morty thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop over their character list. So if I go, you know, here and I check out their get all characters, all we need to do is go to this address with using Axios, and it'll give us our res.data will be an object, and it'll have two keys, info and results. So info is an object and results is an array because it's square brackets. So you always have to look at those brackets to figure out if we're talking an object or an array. And
Where did you find that API?
oh, it's Rick and Morty API.com.
Yep, that's where I'm at, but
And then if you click
I
on
just-
docs,
oh, docs, okay.
yeah. And then
Ah.
on the left-hand side, you've got introduction and character. And you can
I
either look
don't.
at,
Oh, there it is. I
Yeah.
had to open it up bigger. Okay.
then you've got get multiple characters. If you click on get multiple characters, that gives us our, sorry, get all characters. Sorry, losing my mind. Get all characters is this endpoint here, where you go, you know, axios.get, parentheses, quotes, then this thing in there, and it'll give you something that comes back like this.
Got it.
So your res.data is going to look like this whole long string of stuff, except it'll just keep going. There's 20 characters per page. It'll tell you how many characters there are here on res.data.info.count is 826, res.data.info.pages is 42. And then they've got this really cool one called next and previous. So if you wanted to link to the next one, you just need to make a link where it goes and replaces your Axios request with this string, which we're not going to get into today because, well, it's not necessary. So I can get back over. There we go. But what we're interested in is this. So if you notice, you've got a result, and we've already got these two lines here, ID and name. So we're already at the point where we can render out these names just by plugging in an Axios, and it'll give us 20 names. So if we plugged in an Axios right now, we could do it. But I want to take it one step further and put in another component, because it's a pattern that you'll see over and over and over the next, well, your lifetime. So instead of just people, because, you know, people is plural, we want singular. We only want to deal with one person at a time. So what we can do is we can make another one called person.jsx. Does anybody remember what the first thing that I need is? Everybody's like, oh no, he's asking questions. What did he say?
The
Import React?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a lowercase I. See, I haven't lost my mind. It did actually do React that time. All right, and then we're going to make a new variable, and this one's going to be person. We're going to have a function that takes props. I'm going to console log my props because I can. And oh, we need a return. The last thing we need is an export default. Those are the three things you need. You need an import. Well, most of the time, I guess ever since 17 point something, you don't, but I don't work in 17 at work. So yeah, we're just going to do it the way that I have muscle memory for. You need some sort of a function. I personally prefer ES6 and newer functions instead of the ES5 syntax, where it's function person parentheses. For whatever reason, this seems to make more sense to me that it's a variable that is equal to a function, and I don't know why. And then you need an export. Otherwise, you can't import it anywhere. So we're going to import this into people. And the reason why we're separating out all this code, it looks like it's taking up more and more complexity and more room, more and more space, less efficient, and everything else is if you need to make a change to one thing, then it's a lot easier to make a change to an individual item over something that is going to affect 50 different things. So a lot of the times, so like at Williams Sonoma, for an example, if I change a CSS style that affects everything on the page, it has to be tested with every page that Williams Sonoma has. So, but if I change something that only affects one small part of the page, we only have to test the pages where it touches. I think you're off mute. Let's see. I'll go ahead and do. Where's my mute button? Participants. Okay, cool. I think I got everybody on mute. Okay, so what we can do is we can import our person. And since this is in the current directory, it's the exact same direction. I just need to do /person because they're at in the same components folder. So since we're in people and we're looking at person, it's just a / away from person. It's in the same folder and person. So now what I can do is I can go over here and I can invoke person. Oh, sorry, capital P. Person. And this will run person every single time that this is mapped and run the console log, which does nothing other than tell us that there's an object in there. Oh, sorry, this needs to be wrapped in a fragment because I have two returns in the same return. So you'll only be able to have one parent element in any return. So that's where these sometimes come in handy, is when you have two things. So you don't have to put a div here and a div here. So if I want to do person and then H1, I can do person then H1 and it'll work just fine. So let me save that. We'll go back over to Rick and Morty and refresh. And this is the other thing where it says each child. That's only because I have that fragment right there, which we're going to get rid of anyway. But you'll notice that we have person JSX ran this once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So the first one is it ran for Brian, but we didn't pass any props down. Second one was Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. So pretty soon that's gonna start getting to be like one of those tongue twisters, I'm sure. But what we can do is we can pass in person. Person equals person, right? And now if I save this and refresh, you can see the props have gotten a little bit more complicated. So we've got an object with person in it, and we're probably going to need that key. We'll just do key person plus, oops, sorry, that needs to be in quotes. Plus person ID. All right, maybe that'll shut it up. So refresh. It didn't, but it's fine. But now we have each individual person. So here's Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. So we're passing information out, but we're not rendering anything here, right? It's just this right here. Not very interesting. So let's go ahead and move this. We're just gonna cut that. Paste that and save that. So now I can get rid of these fragments because we don't need them. And it's just not necessary. And now we have this people.map. We're now, instead of rendering just an H1, we're rendering another file, whatever is returned out of person. So this return statement gets returned in here, and it gets appended to article over and over and over until the map is done. So it goes map once, append to article, map twice, append to article, 3 times, append to article. So it runs that every single time. And person.jss person is not defined. Oh yeah, we haven't broken that out. So what you'll see with that is we can either do props.person. Do that because we haven't broken person out of props, so no destructuring. Or you can destructure it and just have person. So now we've got it where it's rendering again. If we go into elements, you can see the HTML file. This app is from app. This article here is from people. And then inside of person, it's returning an H1. So this is person, 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 person. So start with our HTML document. It mounts app. App gets rendered here. App is calls people here. People renders article. And then it maps over the next component. So people.map person. And then that's just an H1. So it returns an H1. Technically, we could probably get rid of this fragment now as well. It'll be fine. So now, go back over to the poll. Looks like next one is useEffect, useState. This is what everybody's been waiting for. Even though technically mapping over arrays was higher. Anybody else stuck on mapping over arrays or components wants to ask a question? Or did I lose everybody?
I think I'm good.
Heard a couple of people leave. We're down to 11. We're at like 17 at the peak. And then I guess they were like, oh no, this guy sounds like somebody is gonna put me to sleep. It's too early to go to sleep. Yeah. All right. Anybody need a break, or you guys are good to continue? Okay. Sounds like we're all good to continue. All right. So if I wanted to convert this into a use state, what I would probably want to do is, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way because that's the way I'm used to it. So we're just going to use state from I don't think we're going to need those two anymore for right now. We might come back to them later. So if I wanted to convert this array here, this people array, into a use state, what I would probably do is all use state is a function that returns an array. So if I wanted to do this, kind of like destructuring an object, the object has the curly brackets like that. This is going to be an array, and it's going to return two things. The first one is the getter, the other one is the setter. So people and set people. So the other thing that you need is a use state. And you have to invoke the use state, which would include whatever data is in here is whatever the initial data is. So use state is wrapping this entire array. And that's its initial data. So what usually you'll see is, initial data or initial people, and then you'll have this, just in case you had to reset something. You can just use initial people. And then so this is all this is doing is it's saying initial people represents this array with a whole bunch of objects in it. And we're going to be putting it into use state. So now use state is going to take this argument and it's going to turn it into a variable called people and a function called set people, or a method called set people. When you invoke set people and you put something else in it, it replaces everything in there. So you can't do like set people equals something. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to do, set people with parentheses and put something else in it. So it replaces all of people every single time that you use set people. Just in case you're wanting more information on it, it is called immutability. So the people array, in this case, cannot be directly manipulated. But the set people is the only way that you can modify people. And the only way you can modify people is by replacing it completely with set people. And that's sort of the big deal. So if I save this, it's still going to run the exact same way, but now this is using the slice of state instead of a variable. So that's what set state does. The magic behind set state is when you start changing the data that's inside of that people state, which is what we're about to do. I have a basic format here that's compatible with what is in this documentation, where I have an array of objects, and those objects have an ID and name. All the rest of it, yeah, sure, we can have fun with that here in a little bit. They even have an image to make it look pretty. And that's where the style components come in, because that was the last thing on the list. So is anybody still stuck on use state? Because we're about to use it again inside of a use effect. Oh, it's so quiet. It's amazing. You guys have gone to sleep. I knew I had a really soothing voice.
We must be all good.
All right, cool. All right. I swear we need to have bells or something, ring twice if you're good or something. Who knows? All right. So we're going to get into a use effect, but we're also going to be using axios. So the only time right now that you would ever really use a useEffect is when you have an axios. In truth, it's anything that you want to make a change or display or whatever at the end of the React lifecycle, which we go into next month a little bit further. But for right now, if you're running an axios, anything for a get where you're replacing data on the page, you need a useEffect. If you're posting like next week, you don't need a useEffect to post because it's only being run once. So there is no looping possible. Well, there is, but you'd have to work at it. So let's see here. Oh, I got a new message. Give me 1 second. See what somebody said. Slackbot. That's even harder to say than Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. Just in case you're wondering why I keep trying to call you Roxette, is I had a friend in high school named Roxette.
I've never been called that, but I've been called Rebecca. I
Fantastic.
don't know, all kinds of R names.
That's lovely. All right, so you can see all of our, we broke a bunch of things. So I'm going to Control C out of this and close down the server because I'm only using one of these windows. I'm going to go in here into the package.json file. And I'm trying to do Axios. Do you guys see Axios inside of my dependencies? No, there's no Axios in there. So what we're going to need to do is npm install, or if you're me, you just do npm I, it's the same thing, and Axios. So when this is done, you'll notice that's going to put Axios right above React and right below @testing library user event, and it's done. And now I can do npm start again. And watch the server open up Rick and Morty again because it's not smart enough to know that I've already got one open. All right, cool. So now we can actually access Axios now. So Axios won't throw an error. What we do need to do is import it. It's like that. So the second thing that we're going to need is a useEffect so we don't loop. So now we have two things that we haven't implemented, so they're in green or gray. So useEffect and Axios, we're not using it anywhere. Well, actually, look, we've got set people too. So we'll get there. So typically I'll put my useEffect at the end here. It just mostly because it makes sense to me. And useEffect takes two things. First thing is a callback, and that could be an external callback. So you could do a function up here if you want. That's fine. And it takes a dependency array. So for the most part, this is almost always empty unless you have something that needs to refresh it. Yes, it will throw an error if you do set people in there and you didn't include people inside of here, but that's just a good way of taking all of your API requests and throwing them down the drain as fast as the computer can request them. So for the most part, leave this empty, especially if you don't fully understand it. Then just because it has an error, you're smarter than the computer, you know that that error doesn't mean anything. So we'll go back into this useEffect, and what we're going to do is we're going to do an axios.get and then put in our web address from our documentation over here. So Rick and Morty API.com/API/character. And we're going to put it in right here. So axios.get returns a promise. In this case, I'm going to use .then because I can. And .then takes a callback, just like this. And we need to name the variable that's in here. Most people will call it res. You can call it banana. We don't care. Res just makes sense. And I will console log res immediately. That's the first thing I do. So when I go back to Rick and Morty and I go here to console, we have all these console logs freaking everywhere, right? It's horrible. Who decided to do this? And we're looking for, I want to refresh. We're looking for this app.js line 40. So you'll notice it's app.js line 40 here. Console log res, right? So just in case you're wondering what res is, it's an object. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just an object. So it's res equals curly brackets. What's in it? I don't know. Apparently config, data, headers, requests, status text. And you can see this data here has what we're expecting, which is an object with a key named info and a key named results.
Can
So-
I see your axios call again? Because I'm not getting anything in my console log.
So what we have is we have axios.get.
Yeah.
We're grabbing Rick and Morty API.com/API/character.
Mhm.
Then we have a .then.
Res.
So .then is a function. So you've got an opening and closing parentheses.
Yeah.
Then you have a callback. So that callback has a parameter named res, arrow function, curly brackets, and then console log, whatever is in here. And then it also needs to make sure your useEffect looks exactly like that.
Yeah, I'm not getting any errors, but it's not showing me the data in the console either.
Is your server running?
Yeah.
Does it have any warnings?
Oh, wait a minute. There, I had to refresh. Sorry. I'm good.
Okay.
I found it.
Okay, so now you've got the console log with data, or if you open that up, it's config, data, headers, request, status text, the whole works. I wonder if that can be made larger. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm on a tiny monitor over here. Does that look correct?
Yeah, but we don't just want data though. We want these results objects,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're gonna get there. So
Okay.
partly we're gonna now start doing, so like we have this res and we're gonna do res.data. So I'm just going to do one step at a time because this is probably the object that you want is res.data. So if we look into here, we'll notice, let me refresh. That way it's got a fresh thing in here. So now you notice that this is an object where we've got info and results. So res.data is usually, not always, exactly what you want, especially if you want to deal with like these pages or whatever. In this case here, we just want this page of data. We don't care about the second page. So we don't have to worry about looking at page 2 or page 3 or whatever. We're only interested in doing one thing, which is replacing Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd with Rick Sanchez, Morty Smith, Summer Smith, blah, 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 all the way down the line. So we're wanting to replace them. So we're going to do res.data.results, which you were absolutely correct. If I save that, refresh, you'll notice app.js line 40 is now an array of objects. So that is the correct form or the correct shape of the data. So now what we can finally do is we can finally set our people. Set people. We have to invoke or call set people because it's a method. And we can now pass in res.data.results. Exactly what we have in console log. We're console logging it, and we're going to pass it straight into set people. So now what this is going to do is this is going to render onto the virtual DOM everything that you see here. The virtual DOM doesn't happen on the screen. It's invisible, and it happens once. So it passes in all this information, Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, Todd, all the way down the line from people to person, and renders it in memory. And then it hits this useEffect, and this useEffect runs axios get, replaces all of this data up here with this data here. And then it renders it one more time to the virtual DOM. And when it's figured out that it doesn't have any more renders, it displays it to the screen. And that's part of the reason why it's so fast, is it can actually make those changes on the fly instantly, because it's not having to go and say, hey, browser, render this. Oh, wait, no, that wasn't what I wanted to render. Something changed. Render it again. Oh, wait, that's not what I wanted. Render it again. So anytime there's a change, it's calculating the background before it refreshes the screen. So it does all the calculations for you in the background, making it so you don't have to append child or keep track of any of this stuff. It just does it for you. So all of that weirdness that we learned last week, that was like, I know that all of you guys have at least one hole in your wall from your forehead hitting it, because that's vanilla JS. That's just how it works, right?
So can I just clarify,
Sure.
to make sure I understand, because this is what has been, some of this has been confusing me.
That's what I'm here
So
for.
we had our initial array, initial people,
Mhm.
and because we said use state on initial people,
Mhm.
that tells it that we're going to be doing some updates to it.
No, because so like what we've done is we've defined two variables, people and set people.
Mhm.
So this first people is equal to whatever people is equal to. In this specific case, it's equal to initial people because we told useState to use that value. So people
Mhm.
is actually equal to initial people now.
That's the default. Okay.
Yeah, that's our default value for the first render, and just makes it a nice, easy place to reset things if we wanted to reset things. Now, the set people is the second variable that it created. That variable is a function. And so what this is going to do is it's going to, when you invoke it, it's going to replace anything that was in here with this. So it's no longer initial people. It's not appending it to the end. So you don't have, ID 6 is equal to Morty or Rick Sanchez. It doesn't do that. It just replaces it. So it's like it deleted all of this information that was stored into people, and it replaces it with this array here. And you can accidentally overwrite it with other stuff. So that's why you have to be careful that it's the same shape of the data that you're expecting. So
this is why we do the ternary.
No, we're not even into ternaries here. This is just, all this is
No, I mean,
just
like when we were doing updates to a status, or like an update to a like, we do a ternary so that if there's no update, it just leaves what was there, right? It doesn't erase it.
Yeah, there's ways of doing it without using a ternary, but yeah, something like that. So
Okay.
the idea here is that with that ternary, that was to stop you from updating it again. But in this case, Axios is only going to run once because it's inside of a useEffect. And a useEffect specifically with an empty dependency array only runs one time per like refresh. It doesn't rerun automatically whenever something updates. So like if people updates, it's not going to rerun.
Okay.
So now, if I save this, you're going to notice Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd here.
It's gone.
They're going to go bye-bye if I did things right. Yeah, so now we're displaying information, not that we came up with, but information that came from somebody else's website that they were kind enough to put together.
But it didn't actually erase our data. It
Nope.
put new data in that set people variable.
Yeah, because like this right here is still a variable, like initial people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I could set people and put, initial people in there. It'll do nothing, but it will try to run it more than once. I'm missing semicolon. Oh, come on now. Let's try that. So now all we did was we started off with initial people, and then we overrode it again with initial people. Because we have a new variable named people, we're not overwriting initial people at all. Initial people is always initial people. We're not trying to change it. But when we put res.data.results, whatever was in people is gone. It's deleted and overwritten completely. And that's how we can get this information, because people is now equal to this list of information. Let me refresh. So you can kind of see the first time it runs through people, this first render on the virtual DOM, it's got Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, then Todd. Now what happens next is it goes into this useEffect. It does the axios.get, it does this .then, and then it hits this console log. Notice how it says res.data.results. That's app.js line 40, app.js line 40. So this is now res.data.results. That's the information that's in that specific address on that object, on the res object. So now what's happening here is we have now updated set people. Because we updated set people, so people gets replaced with res.data.results, which is this information here. It now knows that something has changed because we are using this this useState function. Whenever something goes through set people, it tells React, hey, something's changed. You might want to re-render everything that touched people. And so it does. And so you'll notice that on people, the people array is now changed. So this is what we passed into people.jsx. Got down here again. And we console logged whatever props was, which is people. And then it mapped over that. And so each person is in here. The exact same way that it did it earlier with Brian, Roxanne, Josh, Mallory, Joey, and Todd. But we just overrode it. So that information is no longer there. The only reason why we know about it is because I have all these console logs everywhere. Gabe is probably shaking in his boots if he's watching this, but he's our Unit 4 instructor. So does that flow make a little bit more sense, or are you guys still completely lost, or you need me to go over it one more time? That's what I'm here for. Anybody? Put everybody back to sleep. How many people did I lose? Oh, we're still at 11. They obviously have to be asleep. They didn't leave. All right. So let's see. Let's go back over to my thing. So so far we have covered mapping over arrays, components, even though that wasn't high on the list, useEffect, useState, axios. Looks like other random stuff actually has a higher vote count than styled components. Does anybody have other random stuff that they have questions about before we get into styled components? Or did all those people leave?
Well, I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this might be related to the style components. Do we need to know in depth about React Bootstrap?
Nope, not for the test.
Okay,
Sorry, Sprint, we're not allowed to call it a test.
gotcha.
Kind of like calling you guys learners. You're not students, you're learners. There is a reason for that. And if you go into like a lot of the teaching theory and technology and things like that, there was this guy at one point, I think his name was Bloom or Bloomberg or something like that. And he had a theory about learners that he did a lot of tests to figure out if you had one-on-one tutoring. His hypothesis was that one-on-one tutoring was the best possible way of learning, followed by a certain number of other things like, group learning or corrective learning. So like if you came to me with a problem and you can't figure it out, I tell you how to figure it out. Those were all pretty high up on the list, but his idea was to try to figure out a way of teaching people in groups. And he had found a way. I don't remember all the details on it, but I could probably find it. I think the guy's name was Bloom, but really smart guy. Pretty cool stuff if you ever get into teaching studies and things like that. Being a teaching geek, that probably helps out a little bit. But you'd always look it up. I'm pretty sure it's Bloom. It's either Bloom or Bloomberg, which probably come up with too many other things. But I'll see if I can find an article on it. I'll post that. Anyway, sidetrack. The idea here is that we've got a bunch of text. It's really not that interesting. I mean, it's just, yay, you've got characters from Rick and Morty. Okay, we probably want some more information than that. Would you guys agree? Like, I don't know, anything more, like photos? So let's kind of look inside of one of these objects. So we've got created, that's boring. What episodes are they on? Too much information, don't really want to go through that. Hey, we got a gender. That's cool, I guess. So he's a male human who is still alive. Sounds good. Let's try that. So if we go back over into person, let's say that we wanted to make this a div instead of just an H1, and put in a p tag, and we did something like props.person.name is a person is it gender? Yeah, props.person.gender and space, and we'll do props person species. I'm pretty sure that was species. Yeah. So now we've got a phrase that says Rick Sanchez is a male human who is props.person.sex. You know, status. Yeah. Who is alive? So now we've got props.person.name. Rick Sanchez is a props.person.gender, male, space, props.person.species, so human, who is props.person.status, alive. Oh, and let's put in an image. Why not, right? We'll do just like the image source. So sorry, in these curly brackets. So we're going to do props.person dot, what was that? URL image. We also need an alt tag. We're just going to props.person.name. I guess we'll move this up. So now we've got the image first. Oh, I need to close that tag, don't I? Okay. So now we've got an image, then a header, and then a paragraph. And we'll go ahead and save that. Now we've got our image. Rick Sanchez. Rick is a male human who is alive. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this down a little bit now that we've got it. Okay. That's 100% on my screen. Rick, Morty, Summer, Beth, Carrie. Don't know how to pronounce that. Everybody's in here. It's amazing. Or Alexander, he's dead. Yeah, so you've got 20 characters on the screen. It's already more interesting by far than anything else that we've created today. And we haven't even done style components yet. So I think we've got enough information. We could do a style components on this now. So
I always have trouble linking these children down. And for some reason, I have imported people or person into my people. And then I put a reference to the person tag inside my return.
yeah, so you've got
and then
you've got this one here. So you got import person from person. And
Yep.
then are you mapping your person?
Oh, no. Oh, that makes sense because it's an array. So you can't just tell it person. Oh, I'm mapping it in. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not mapping it anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, so the idea here is that you're mapping right here where you have this person. This person is a new variable that you have created. You could call it banana, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You could name it, let it go, so long as there's no spaces.
Okay.
So what it's doing is it's making a new variable named person. And that is just array element 0 or array element 1 or array element 2. We don't know which one it is because it represents all of them in a completely abstract thing that is sometimes a little hard to understand. But once we get used to it, it makes a lot more sense. It's just a matter of practice. So what this does is this is a new variable that is scoped to this function right here. And so that allows us to import or start running the person functions. So person is a function. It's also a component. And you can do your key equals whatever you want that's unique and pass in another prop called person equals person. And it should probably work just fine. Should.
Okay. Yep. Now I got it.
So
Thank you.
now we've got like this little div inside of here. That's fine. Let's start making some style components. What do you guys think? Sound good? This is let's see, I think that's the last one that we have on the list. We just have style components left and then we're done, and then we just have a Q&A at the end. That's
The
Great.
style thing was confusing though because of all the,
nah, it's easy.
didn't we have to install new? Oh, good. I'm glad it's easy.
We didn't
That
we
way.
didn't have to. You're not going to be asked to use like props inside of styled components. It's going to be like, hey, use styled components.
Okay, and
That's
then you
it.
just style anything or
Then
what?
you just style it the way you want it.
So
so-
we just have, okay, well, so I'll let you go now. You could.
Yeah. So I'm going to style this the way that I want it. So effectively what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to put, I don't know, some sort of a title up here, and maybe in H1 call it, I don't know, Rick and Morty. Sounds great to me. And then make all these like an H2 instead. So it's really quite simple. But first we need to install styled. Make sure I didn't misspell that. STYLED Isn't that got a hyphen in it? I'm positive it does. Let me go ahead and make sure. So we're going to do a Google search for npm and npm.js and styled dash components. Yeah, glad I didn't hit enter. All right, so watch it start doing Bitcoin mining or something on my computer. Yeah, it looks fine. So okay, cool. So that's installed. Let's go ahead and do npm start again. Now that we've got that installed. Hurry up and wait. Close that down and we'll just refresh, make sure it's working. Cool, it is. So I don't know, I guess we need to import styled, right? All right, so what you need to do is you need to make a new component to make this work. And it has to, you can't really define it inside of here, inside of your function. You got to make it so that it's like above here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a const, say, image. We're going to set this equal to styled.img. I'm going to use backticks because that's the way I know how to do it. And I know there's ways of doing it with curly brackets, but this gives me everything that I would ever want. So I'm just going to see if this works. So border radius. And see if this explodes. Oh yeah, we haven't done anything with it. We still have to call this image. Like that. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for style components. You have now passed the sprint because you use style components. I'd recommend doing more than that. And we are. Don't worry about it. So I guess I don't know. I guess I think I want to put this H1 above. No, that's not what I wanted. I have to switch between a Mac
What
and a
did you do
PC.
to it? You just made it bold?
No, I changed the image so that it's got round images.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was trying to get my thing restarted. And how could you just run through how you did that again?
So I on here I installed style components,
I did that.
restarted the server.
That's what took me forever.
I imported styled from styled components.
In person, okay.
No, imported, not in person. It's 55.
In the person file, you did it, right?
Oh yeah, in the person file, yeah. And then I made a new styled image variable. So this is a const image, and I equaled this to styled, and I want it to be
Okay.
of the type image. And on these backticks are some fancy way of doing curly brackets. Don't ask me, it doesn't have to make sense. But it just allows me to put this border radius in here the way that I would style it in CSS, is without doing border radius without the dash with capital R 50%.
Well, that is easy then.
Yep. And then the last step to this is, see how we made this a new variable, and I highlight this and I replace this img with capital I MAG. So this whole
Okay.
line is now a component, just like, person is a component. So that's why it's a styled component. And it took all this information and made an image out of it.
So so I could do anything I want now. Would this be for any image on this page only, right?
On this page only. It's only scoped to this page.
Okay. And then if I could do anything with this image, and then if I wanted to do a
Like an
different
H1.
style for something else, I would have to create another variable. Okay.
Yeah. So, but the idea is to have a capitalized first letter to denote that it is a component. So then you would do,
Okay.
and actually I wanted these as an H2, right? I already said that I wanted that. So then we'll do H2, backticks, and we'll say, line text center, and I don't know, font size to rem. And we'll do Helvetica, why not? I guess it doesn't understand Helvetica. We'll do sans serif.
Oops.
Oh, I never put it on anything. Yeah, I need to put it on here. So we'll do a multiple cursor. Let's give it. Okay, so now it's sans serif.
Okay.
And let me see if I can do Helvetica.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's more Helvetica E. It's a font that you either love or hate. Anybody who's into typefaces hates it, so I use it all the time. Just me being mean. And then let's do E equals E. And we'll do yeah, we won't do justify. We'll just do enter. And just need to change this to a capital P and this to a capital P. Save it. Yeah, so now we've got that as Helvetica. This is Helvetica. That still isn't text aligned center. I wonder why. Inspect.
One question real quick. You're going to be
Yeah.
posting this recording, yeah, in the Web 49?
Absolutely.
Please. Thank you. I appreciate you because I have somewhere I have to be, but I need this all.
So hopefully this has been a big help.
Yes, most certainly. Phenomenal.
Absolutely, thank you. I think I just had it where it's off. Okay, cool. So that's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. It's not particularly pretty, but let's do image. We're gonna do a width. 100%. All right, cool. So now these are all kind of too big. And we'll go ahead and make another one up here. Call this one, say, const. Div. And we're gonna make this so the width is what is the width on an iPhone? Let's find that. Let's find like an iPhone 5. Yeah, there we go. 320. So we'll just do 300 pixels. Don't feel like converting that to rem. All right, so now we're gonna do capital D on this one. Save it. Okay, cool. So now we're back down to something reasonable for size, right?
Mhm.
I probably want a little padding on this. So margin's fine. We'll make this like 280. Probably fine. Okay. Yeah, that works. So now we kind of have, it's looking sort of okay. Maybe a little bit of border. Let's do some padding, and then padding.
Can you create one of these styles where you can do a media?
A media query? I'm
Yeah,
sure you
media
can.
query.
I never really dug into it that far, but
Okay.
a lot of the times that would be in some sort of a CSS, and then it would be targeting it some other way. But I think there's a way of you
Okay.
doing it through this, but I've never personally done it.
Got it.
So I put a little bit of margin and padding, just one rim, so I could put a little border around it. We'll do 1 pixel, solid. Green. I think that's all we need for that. Yeah. So you can kind of see their cards. And we'll do a border radius. See how that looks. Yeah, so it kind of looks like playing cards, right? What do you guys think? Looks okay? Now let's make it so it's responsive without using media queries. So I'm going to go into people. Since that's the parent element, we can now use Flexbox on those individual cards. So we'll import styled components. And we're going to make a new one called article. We're going to equal this to styled article. And we're going to display flex and change these to A's, capital A and capital A. All right, now we've got something that's horrible. Look at that. That's disgusting. Right? So let's fix that. We'll do Flex wrap. Wrap. Oh, that's better. All right, so if I make this a little wider, now it's responsive, but you can kind of see we don't really want it to be to the left. We want this to be like, I don't know, maybe space evenly would look better. So we'll do justify. Space evenly. So as we make this go larger, we'll close that. There. Now I can, make it go smaller, 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 all the way down to phone size. And this actually works pretty well. And let's do one more on app. So we'll do a import style components, and we'll do a, what was this section? Yeah, it was in the section. This one here is fine. We're just going to put it like right inside of here. We're just going to have this as an H1. And we'll do font size. I'll say 3 rem. Bold is fine. And then if there's a script one, we're going to try that. So we're just going to put this right above people. Now this is an H1. Say, I don't know. Do I guess one more thing, we're going to center it. So we'll do a line text. All right, I think I didn't break it. Yeah, so list of Rick and Morty characters. It's a text align. I'll get this right one of these days. Yeah, so now we have list of Rick and Morty characters. Looks pretty good, actually. What do you guys think? It shrinks down. It's still spaced nicely. Looks good. Using Flexbox to its maximum advantage. Yeah. Inspect. We'll go down to iPhone 5. This is what it would look like on an iPhone 5. Does anybody still have an iPhone 5? Come on, raise your hand. Oh wait, nobody's on video except for Roxanne. Got something that's more.
I have an 11 and I'm still waiting for a decent upgrade before I get a different one.
I got the Surface Duo. If I rotate it, that's what it would look like in landscape mode. Galaxy S5, that's kind of like mine. Mine's an S8. I'm so old. Rotate it on its side. Who holds the phone on its side except the film? And some people don't even do that. They won't even work very well on its side on that one. But let's go to like iPhone 10. Yeah, there we go. You get all that information on there. It's so responsive. What do you guys think? I think I lost a few more people. Either that or they went to sleep. It must be nice to take a nap at this time of night. Any other questions? We're now in Q&A.
That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. That's why I do them. Well, if there's nobody else, then I'll go ahead and stop the recording and let's see, where is this stop recording?